First of all, Hanukkah Sameach, Chodesh Tov to everybody. Today's shir is Le'ilui Nishmat Sarah Bat Miriam, but also Ephraim Irwin, I'm not sure his father's name, and also Daniel Ben Yosef, who's both the latter two have their yortzites on the 8th day of Hanukkah. One was my wife's grandfather, and one was my aunt's husband, my uncle, through marriage. I never had the zechut to meet my wife's grandfather, but there are many amazing things that are said about him, about his honesty. We're going to talk about Yosef Atzadik today and his honesty, his fact that he was true to his word. So I think it's very fitting that we're dedicating this in his memory. So the parasha starts off by saying, Vayhi Mikeitz Shnatayim Yamim Uparo Cholem. And it was at the end. Mikeitz, at the end. What do you mean? You're starting the parasha by saying it's the end. You're supposed to start at the beginning, and then you get in the middle, and then you have the end. Why are you starting with the end? So you have to understand what this end was. This end was an end of a 2-year period where Yosef Atzadik received an extra prison sentence. He was already in prison for 10 years, and because he entrusted his future to a low-life Egyptian, this Egyptian was the one who was with him in prison, and he was going out. And Yosef said to him, look, remember me to Paro, because I need to get out as well. I mean, you're going out, I also need to go out. So do me a favor, mention my name. I need to be released from prison. Because he trusted in this goy, he got 2 years extra in prison. Now most authorities say, most commentaries say, that this was a punishment for Yosef because he didn't put his trust 100% in Hashem, as he had done previously. He trusted, instead of Hashem releasing him from prison, that this Egyptian was going to have him released from prison. And that was a little bit of a lacking in bitachon, was a lack of emunah by Yosef. But I want to suggest something different based on a pasuk in Tehillim. Tehillim that we read as men, we read every day. It's one of the most famous parakim of Tehillim. Shir Ma'alot Esa Einai El Harim Mayayin Yavo Izri. In this parak it says something very interesting. It says, Hashem Tzilcha Aliyad Yeminecha. What does that mean? Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem is my shadow Aliyad Yeminecha, by my right hand. You know, there's that song, Me and My Shadow. Why is Hashem called a shadow? So the answer is, when you raise your hand, your shadow goes with you. When you put your hand down, your shadow follows. Whatever you do, your shadow is stuck to you. Provided you can see the shadow. Sometimes you can't always see the shadow. Sometimes there's a lot of light and you can't see the shadow. But it just occurred to me now, beautiful. But when it's dark, when there's only a little bit of light, you can see the shadow. That's like Hashem. Sometimes when there's so much light, there's so much good, there's so much materialism, there's so much of Olam Hazeh, we can't see Hashem. Only when it's dark a little bit, and you shine the shadow, and then the light comes and you see behind you a big long shadow, that's when you can see Hashem. Oh, or maybe you can say it the other way around also. When it's too much light and you have a light piercing directly at you, then you can see the shadow. But normally it's not like that. Normally when it's light, you don't see the shadow. Anyway, So why does it say, why is Hashem compared like a shadow? The answer is that the way a person behaves is how Hashem will relate to that person. I'll give you an example. There's a chazal that says, I'm hoping I'm going to quote it correctly. B'derech sheben adam rotzeh lalech molechim oto min hashamayim, which means in the way that a person goes in heaven, that's how they push him. If a person wants to be bad, and he really wants to be bad, they'll open all the doors for him. If a person wants to be good, and he really wants to be good, then they'll lead him that way, min hashamayim. This is how Hashem relates to us in this world. If we want to go one way, Hashem will treat us that way, will echo us that way. Whatever way we want to go, that's how Hashem deals with us. So in other words, relating this to Yosef, when Yosef treated the whole situation as if it was in the hands of this Egyptian, what he was saying was, I'm taking Hashem out of the picture to some degree. Obviously, we're talking about Yosef HaTzadik on his level. I'm sealing my fate not through Hashem, but through this Egyptian. And he will be the cause of my redemption. This Egyptian person who's just been released. Now that's wrong. Yosef was demonstrating now that he didn't trust in Hashem 100%. So Hashem, instead of punishing him, because it's not a punishment as such, Hashem was reacting to him by way of consequence. It was a consequence of Yosef's actions. So in other words, a person who acts a certain way, there is a reaction. We say in science, no? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if Yosef wanted to act in a certain way, Hashem didn't punish him straight away and say, look, you've been a very naughty boy, I'm going to give you a punishment now. No. Hashem said, okay, you've taken me out of the picture, so I'll remove myself out of the picture now. So now your fate, you've resigned yourself that your fate will be through man, so then you will be left to man. Man will deal with you. I won't be mashgiach on you. I won't influence you like I did before. Now you're left to the fate of man, which is exactly what David HaMelech prayed for. He said, Hashem, I would rather you punish me than me left to the fate of man. Because he was bemoaning being chased by his son Avshalom. Avshalom wanted to kill his own father. It's unbelievable to think such a thing. He prayed to Hashem, look, I don't want to be left to the hands of man. You deal with me. Because I know if you deal with me, I stand a chance. If I put my trust in you, I know that's going to be the way out. But if I deal on the level of man, if I resign my fate to fate, as opposed to your direct influence, then I won't stand a chance if I'm in that matzav, if I'm in that situation where I'm left struggling with mankind. But if I leave my fate to you 100%, that's the best way for me. Then I know I stand a chance, because you're in charge. You're large and you're in charge. That's it, simple as that. So again, that little tiny minuscule lack of emunah by Yosef caused the consequence of him being judged and left to the arena of man. So now he had to stay 2 years in prison because you put your hishtadlus, you overstated your hishtadlus, you overstated your effort. Now you have 2 years extra in prison. So now when he comes out, he says, let's go to Pasuk Tet Zayin. So now Yosef is rushed out of prison at the command of Paro, because he hears that there's a professional dream interpreter stuck in the prison. Let's whisk him out. What's the first thing that Yosef says when he comes out? Because Paro, first of all, says to him, listen, I hear you're very good with dreams. I hear you know all about, interpretations. So what does Yosef say? You would think he would say, yes, your majesty, and be quaking and terrified. No. Cool as a cucumber. Yosef replies, Vayan Yosef et Paro. Yosef replies to Paro, Lemor, saying, Bil adai Elokim ya'aneh et shalom Paro. He said, don't attribute it to me. It's nothing to do with me. It's Hashem who's giving the interpretation. It's Hashem who's answering you. I'm just a vessel. I'm literally the conduit. I'm the speaker. Like you have a microphone and you have a speaker. The microphone and the speaker, that's not the voice. That's the channel to translate the voice, to make it tangible to the human ear. In fact, it doesn't become tangible. It's sort of semi-tangible, quasi-tangible. I'm just a vessel, a utensil. It's really Hashem who's doing this. Now, there's something very interesting with this comment. Because originally, when Paro had the dream, he says like this. We go to the first pasuk now. V'hinei omed al hayor. The dream that Pharaoh had was that he was standing al hayor, on top of the river. Then when Yosef comes out, we see in pasuk, the same pasuk Tet Zayin, he said, further on, 1 second, pasuk Yud Zayin. It says when Pharaoh's relating the dream to Yosef, it says, B'chalomi hineni omed al safat hayor. I was standing al safat hayor. Not al hayor. I wasn't standing looking over the river. I was standing al safat hayor, by the bank of the river. Why did he add in this word safat? Not safat like in Israel. Safat. I'm Sephardi. Safat. So, originally, it sounds like he was looking on top of the river. Now he's on the bank. What changed? And in between all this, Yosef was slapped out of the prison, and he said, it's nothing to do with me, it's Hashem. What changed now? So let's go back to Pasuk Aleph. Al hayor, looking over the river, connotes something very special about Paro. Not special. Wicked, actually. What was the Nile? The Nile was a god. They worshipped this river because this river overflowed its banks, and it watered all of Egypt. So they considered it like a deity. So what was Pharaoh saying? He was acknowledging that the Nile was a god, but at the same time, I'm on top of the Nile. Al hayor. The Nile is a great god, I'm not denying that. But me, I'm better. I'm the God of gods. Small g. That's what he was saying. That's what he told all his dream interpreters. You know something? You can worship the Nile. But the Nile worships me because I'm the best. There's nobody better than me. Now, when Yosef comes out of the pit, of the prison, and he says to Pharaoh, he says, you know something? You think I'm great. You haven't seen God. You haven't seen Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. He's much greater. I'm nothing. Bil adai. I'm literally like nothing. I don't even exist. Hashem is the Baal HaChalomot. So Pharaoh, when he heard this, straight away, against his nature, he became humbled. Somewhat. He became humbled. He said, what? A Jew, a lowly Hebrew slave, comes out. He's the greatest interpreter of dreams. And he thinks he's a nothing because of this Hashem. He says, now, what did he say? When he gives over his dream, he says, no, I wasn't on top of the river, I was on the bank of the river. I was equal with the Nile. He was pushed off his perch, somewhat. You see, you hear that? What lesson do we learn from this? A very important lesson. It's up to the Jew to be so sincere with our humility, truly, truly humble. Shefal, mod shefal ruach. Very, very humble, it says in Pirkei Avot. Shefal ruach. We have to be so sincere with our humility that anyone in our vicinity who is haughty will immediately be knocked off their pedestal. They'll have no choice. Remember, this was not done with tochacha. Yosef didn't rebuke Paro. He didn't tell him off. He said, what are you doing? You're a big shot. You think you're standing on top of the river. You think you're greater than the Nile. You think you're the bee's knees. You're nothing. He never said that. He didn't say you. He said, look at me. I'm a nothing. I'm the one who's nothing. And through that, Paro got the lesson. Pharaoh got the lesson. Same thing with us in our times, in any time. The best way to influence somebody, first work on yourself. You be the dugma. Before you start giving tochacha, before you start telling people off, you've got to be the best person you can be. Then memela, automatically, people will become influenced. But if you don't live up to your word, nobody will believe in you. You can talk, you can give shiurim, you can stand up on your soapbox, you can talk it up as much as you want. You won't influence anybody. You have a big long beard, long peyot, big long coat. If it's not inside here, it's not going to influence people. Very important lesson. So the dream contained the 7 cows, thin cows eating the 7 big cows. And that was interpreted to mean that there was going to be 7 fat years and 7 lean years. Meaning there was going to be 7 years of plenty, followed by a very severe famine. So the thing that Yosef suggested, he did the squirrel theory. He said, be like a squirrel. Come on, take the nuts, take everything that you need, hide it away, and then you'll have enough for the 7 lean years. In fact, in English, in the vernacular, when somebody hides something away, they call it squirreling. You squirrel something away. It means you hide it away so that nobody can see it. This is the same thing Joseph just suggested. To hide something away. Now, this doesn't require a lot of intelligence. If you know things are going to be hard, you just save. Simple. Any bank manager will tell you that. Save money, and you'll be okay. You'll be set up for later when you may not be earning as much as you do now. You might want to retire, whatever. You might want to, work less than you do now. So you earn now and you put it in the bank, And Yosef was called Chacham ben Naval, who was called clever for that. Navon rather, not Naval. Navon, thank you. This, you have to be a Chacham to think of that. Surely we should say in praise of Yosef that he was a great organizer. He was a manager. He could micromanage any situation. This is a buzzword, micromanaging. You go down to the infinite degree, you're mashgiach on every single detail. He had great managerial skills. Why you call him a chacham? You have to be clever to think of such a thing. The answer is yes. Because very often, people remember and live in the world of the years of plenty, and they cannot even conceptualize the lean years. It doesn't even exist for them. For example, people living in America 20 years ago Could you ever imagine such a situation as there is now? Big, massive corporate companies becoming bankrupt overnight. What's that? Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers doesn't exist anymore. For English people, Woolworths. What happened to Woolworths? When I was growing up, that was like it was a household name. Where is it now? You can't conceptualize things. Perestroika. Who would believe that Russia would fall almost overnight? It was. Tell that to anybody. If you could take a message in a bottle and send it back through time, go in the TARDIS, go back 100 years, go back to one of the shtetls in Russia and say, you know something? Communism and Karl Marx and Lenin and all the other goons, they'll all be history. I said, what are you talking about? Communism is here to stay. It's a worldwide thing. It's not just in Russia. So many countries over the world accepted communism. It's not going to exist. How long will this take? 100 years? 200 years? No. Maybe a year. What? Doesn't make sense. To imagine change on such a large scale in such a short time, it doesn't make sense. Yosef was a chacham because he was ro'eh et hanolad. He understood what was going to be the repercussions. He understood. He visualized something which was impossible to visualize. You have to understand, Egypt was literally the most affluent country in the entire world. It was like saying that America will be penniless. Everyone in America will be on the breadline. Not just America, the whole world. And America will be the one who will have thought carefully and amassed enough food and enough rations, enough of what to live on, that they will sustain the entire world. You could never imagine such a thing. It took a Yosef to think of that. He was the chacham. He thought with his head. You didn't need the organizational skills so much. And even if he had those organizational skills, that wasn't the ikar. The ikar was he could see, could visualize what was going to be. And I want to suggest there's another deeper meaning here. Because when we talk about years of plenty and years of nothing, we can also remember what the Vilna Gaon taught. When the Vilna Gaon was on his deathbed, he picked up his tzitzit and he was crying. And his Talmidim said to him, why are you crying? You're the greatest Gaon. They call you the Vilna Gaon. You've amassed so many mitzvahs. You know, in your whole life, maybe you wasted 1 minute, 2 minutes in total. From a second here, a second there, 2 seconds here, 3 seconds there, maybe. That's your total amount of Bittul Zman. What are you worried about? You know where you're going. He said, I'm not crying about this. I'm looking at my tzitzit. It costs 2 kopecks, 1 kopek to buy this tzitzit. You know what the effect of this tzitzit is? You know, for tuppence you can buy this garment with tzitzit on it. This will give you olam haba. In olam haba, you can't even use it. Whatever Torah you want to learn, whatever schar, whatever gain you want to have, you want to tip the scales of your benefit in that world, you can't do it. It's fixed. You can scream and shout, take me back to Olam Hazeh, take me back to this world. Let me have a few mitzvahs. I just need 5 minutes. Let me do a bit of chesed, learn a bit of Torah. You say, sorry, it's too late. You had 70, 80, 90 years. Why did you waste it? Why did you waste it doing shtuyot? That's what it means. 7 fat years. 7 years of plenty. That's this world. Because in this world is when you can grab. That's what the Vilna Gaon was trying to teach us. Chatof ve'echol, grab and eat in this world, because when you get to that world, there's nothing. There's no schar, there's no reward for mitzvot. You will only get that in this world. That takes a chacham. Moving on to the next perek. We're going to do with Rashi now. Rashi tells us, when Yaakov was speaking to his sons, Vayar Yaakov, כי יש שבר במצרים, ויאמר יעקב לבניו, למה תתרעו? Yaakov says to his sons when he wanted to send them to Egypt, lama titrao, how they translate it here? Why do you make yourselves conspicuous? What does it mean, make yourselves conspicuous? Yaakov was talking to his remaining sons and instructing them what to do. Conspicuous. Rashi tells us, okay, one second, let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'll tell you outside. Yaakov was saying something to his sons which was very interesting. He said to them, you know, we have enough food here. We don't need to go to Egypt. We're not starving. But I'm going to send you down to Egypt anyway. Why? Because if we've got enough food here, and the neighbors, the goyim, will look at us, they'll feel that we're shoving it in their faces. We'll make them jealous. We'll make them feel, ha, we've got and you haven't. Even though we don't literally say such a thing, we will arouse their jealousy. And we don't want that. But Rashi mentions specifically to arouse the jealousy of the people of Esav and Yishmael. Now the people of Esav and Yishmael were not neighbors of Yaakov. Esav had Edom. They were in the land of Edom. They were well away. And Yishmael, they were living in the desert. They were like desert dwellers. Yaakov didn't live near them. So why is Yaakov worried about these people looking at him? They're not even there. So you could turn around and say, no, that's not what Yaakov meant. He meant the Canaanim. He meant the people of Yaakov's own land, the goyim that lived near Yaakov. But he didn't say that. Rashi says clearly, Esav and Yishmael. So what did Yaakov care about them? They couldn't see what was going on. So one interpretation is Yaakov was concerned because the people of Esav and Yishmael might come to my house and ask for food. And I don't want to give them my food. What type of explanation is this? Yaakov Avinu, let me get this right. Didn't he have a Zayda called Avram? Wasn't Avram's tent open from all four sides? Wasn't Avraham the ultimate Machnis Orech, the ultimate host? Thousands of people, thousands of goyim, thousands of idol worshippers came to his house and he converted them. He made them believe in Hashem. So now you're trying to tell me Yaakov Avinu doesn't want to have guests, doesn't want to have Esav, doesn't want to have Yishmael. Why not? You're not following after your Zayda? So I heard a beautiful, beautiful explanation. Beautiful explanation. From Rav Simcha Zissel. And he says as follows. He said, in life, every person has a specific mission. Avram's mission was to be a Machnis Orech, was to be the ultimate host, to invite anyone and everyone, to bring them closer to Hashem. Yaakov's mission was entirely different. His mission was not to be a massive way station for people to come and guests and kiruv like this. He had a different type of kiruv. His kiruv was entirely directed to his 12 sons and their families. His job in this world was to take those shvatim and make sure they stayed on the derech. Not to go to every Tom, Dick and Harry and make them from and make them believe in Hashem. No. That was his grandfather's mission. And his grandfather did that par excellence. Yaakov's mission was entirely different. And here's the proof from Rav Simcha Zissel. Here's the proof. Why did Avram Avinu only have his first son? I'm not talking about Ishmael, I'm talking about Yitzchak. Why did he only have his first son when he was 100 years old? And Sarah was 90 years old. Now, we've talked about this before. There's many answers to this. Rav Simcha Zissel explains something very interesting, and I'll tell you, by way of a vort from an English comedian. This English comedian says as follows. He says, you know, there are two types of people. There are single people and there are parents. When you're a single person, or even when you're married without children, you can be at home and you want to go out somewhere. How do you go out of the door? How do you leave your house? You stand up, you walk towards the door, you open the door, and you go out. Finished. If you're a parent and you have young children, it ain't going to be so easy. Because you have to make the decision. Then you have to scream up the stairs, Chaim, Shloimi, come downstairs, put your shoes on, put your coat on, and they come down with the other person's shoes, or no shoes at all, or no socks. Where's your socks? Where's your shoes? It's a whole performance. It takes 20 minutes. Moshe Ein Kain, as opposed to a person with no kids. Stands up, walks out. Things are different when you have children. Lahavdil, I want to say this is what Rav Simcha Zissel meant. Why did Avram Avinu only have children when he was 100 years old? Have his first child, rather. His first child from Sarah Imenu. Why? To facilitate him inviting all those guests. What happened when he had Yitzchak? He was not quite the host that he was when he had no children. Because then he had the time. He could bring them all in. Now that he had children, first of all, his time was taken up. But how was his time taken up? His time was taken up with educating his son Yitzchak. Now, he didn't have the time to invite the people over, but also he didn't have the same need. His mission changed. Because for him to invite every Tom, Dick and Harry on the street to come and be in his house, now there's a little Yitzchak there. Yitzchak might be influenced by these people. There's a difference. If you invite these people over and you try and makarav them, when it's just you and Sarah Imenu, that's something else. And maybe Ishmael, that's something else. But when you bring these people and there's a little Rachanola, there's a little baby there, his name is Yitzchak, he's going to be a father to a Yaakov and a grandfather to 12 Shvatim. I don't want him under that type of influence. I don't want to see that type of thing. Now my mission has changed. By the time this got through to Yaakov did not have that mission at all. It's not to say that Yaakov didn't invite guests. Of course he invited guests. But not on the same scale. His mission plan was different to his grandfather. This is why he was entitled to say, I don't want an Esau and his family at my table. I don't want an Ishmael and his family at my table. With my Shvatim, with the Shiftei Kal, with the Zavulun and the Yisachar and the Levi and the Shimon. No way. They're too precious to me. I cannot jeopardize their future by having people over and, who knows what type of influence they can have. It's not that he was being like exclusionist and saying, my house is my house. He had a plan. This was in contradiction to his plan. Okay, who has the time now? What's the time?
20 past.
20 past, okay. So we're going to finish off now. Oh, I had one more thing, yeah. Yeah. Yosef calls his son Menashe. Why does Yosef call his son Menashe? It says the Pasuk. Oh, I have to go back a bit now. I want to quote the Pasuk. Pasuk says, thank you, Alex. Yeah. Pasuk says, Vayikra Yosef et Shem HaBachor Menashe. Why Menashe? Ki nashani Elokim et kol amali ואת כל בית אבי. Why did I call my son Menashe? Because the word Menashe implies the word Nashani. Nashani means to forget. He says, I call my son Menashe because now I forgot about my dad. I'm in Egypt and I forgot all about my father's house. What? You forgot about your father? This is something to name your son for? Didn't you have a dream? Sorry, not a dream, a vision when Eshet Potipharah was trying to tempt you? You had a vision of your father. So the first thing you remembered was your father. This doesn't sound like forgetting. What do you mean you forgot your father? And additionally, is that something to be happy about? Yep, now I'm my own man. I'm the ruler of Egypt. At least, maybe not by name. I'm the viceroy, but really I am the ruler because Pharaoh is just like a puppet. So I'm the ruler now. Now I can forget my dad. I can forget my dad's family. Shalom Yisrael. No problem now. What type of thing is this? So I want to suggest like this. Did he want to forget his father? Of course not. Yosef was the proverbial chip off the old block. He was exactly like his father. No different. Even they looked the same. Some say when he looked in the window, when he was being tempted by Potipharah, Eshet Potipharah, he saw not his father's face exactly, he saw his reflection, his own face. And that reminded him of his father. Because he said, I am like my father. I should do such an avera. I should sin against my father. My father stood up to so much in his life. How can I disgrace my father? All that came about by looking at himself. Because he was the spitting image of his father. In more ways than one. In demut, physically, and in all his midot. He was exactly like his father. So he should forget his father? No. What was he trying to say? He was trying to say, Baruch Hashem. Not that I forget my father. I will never forget my father. But for me, I need to deal with things in Egypt in a different way. If I think about my father the whole time, if I worry and I plutz, and I'm so distracted, I'm thinking to myself, oy vey, my father is sitting 22 years mourning for me. He doesn't know if I'm alive or dead. He cannot give up on me. If I think of that all the time, I will never be able to have a proper life. I will never be able to be a ruler in Egypt. So Hashem, I'm telling you, thank you. Not that you made me forget my father. You gave me the koach, the strength, to deal with things without being distracted by my emotions. Because if I were to be distracted by worrying about my father, worrying about him sitting on the floor mourning for 22 years, I would become a nervous wreck. I would become, in Yiddish they say, ois mensch. I won't be able to become a normal person. So thank you, Hashem, for letting me forget my own personal troubles, my personal depression, for want of a better word, about my father. I can't tell him that I'm alive. There's many reasons for that as well. But I need to have this distraction, this whole anxiety put to the back of my head. So I need to rule Allah. I'm responsible for the entire world, not just Egypt. Egypt was the hub of the entire world. So for that pivotal role that I have to play, I need to forget my own emotional distractions. I need to be totally focused on what I have to do. That's why he called his son Menashe. And finally, in Perek Mem Gimel, Pasuk Yud Dalet, says, when Yaakov Avinu finally capitulates and he sends the sons down to Egypt, he says to them, V'kel shaka yiten lachem rachamim lifnei ha'ish. May Hashem give you mercy in front of the man. Now, what had happened up until this point? Yosef had demanded that the rest of the brothers come down to Egypt. He demanded it by way of ransom of Shimon, one of the brothers. So now Yaakov Avinu doesn't know if he's going to see his sons again. So he says, so you would think he would say, look, I'm going to send you down. May Hashem put into the ruler of Egypt the idea of mercy. Let him be merciful. And then he will soften and he will send you back home again, all of you. No, he says something different. He says, Yitain lachem rachamim. May Hashem give you, the brothers, mercy. That doesn't sound right. What have the brothers got to do with it? If anybody had to have mercy in this situation, it would be the ruler, it would be Yosef himself. The ruler should have mercy on the brothers, not the brothers have mercy on Yosef. How do we understand this? And with this I'm going to finish with a story. This is a story of the Rav of Shadik in Poland. There was a new Rav in a place called Shadik in Poland, who took over from the old Rav who was very established. And during the new Rav's first period of tenure, he had to deal with a very awkward situation. Because there was a certain person in that community, in that kahal in Poland, who was what we call a moser. What's a moser? Moser is an informant. An informant, somebody who tells on the Jewish people and informs on them to the government. That's a very bad thing. That's like your chayv mitzah, your chayv karet for such a thing. You are going and telling on the Jews to the goyim? That's terrible. So there was one certain person who was like this. There was one moser in the community. And up until the new Rav took over, this moser was given aliyot in shul, he was given kibbudim, he was given honors. They treated him like the best, for whatever, maybe he had money or whatever. Or maybe they were scared he would inform even more. When this new Rav took over, he said the situation has to change. I'm not going to give in to this guy anymore. Enough is enough. So, a couple of weeks into the Rav's tenure, it was Shabbat morning, and they called an aliyah. They gave this moser, this bad guy, they gave him shishi in shul on Shabbat. And the man gets up all proud, he's walking towards the bimah. The rabbi stops him and says, hang on a minute. Where are you going? You're going to get an aliyah to the Torah? You are an informant. You're a moser. You know how bad that is? You can't do this. How can you do this to your Jewish brothers? Acheinu kol beit Yisrael. Do yourself a favor. Go out of the shul. Think about what you've done. The fellow was furious. And he muttered under his breath, I'm going to teach you all a lesson. And he runs out of the shul. A few months pass. And the Rav is in a wagon. He's traveling somewhere. He's going to a Brit Milah. And he's in the wagon with his talmidim. Suddenly they see coming towards him in another wagon is this moser. And talmidim think, oy vey, now there's going to be a big fight. I don't know what's going to, maybe he's going to, who knows what he's going to do to the Rav. They get very nervous. And the carriage stops right in front of the rabbi's carriage. And the fellow gets out. And he jumps up on the carriage of the Rav and he walks right up to the rabbi and he says, Rabbi, give me mechila, forgive me, because I sinned against you and I sinned against the kehillah. Please forgive me. Talmidim are like, what's going on? I thought this guy was all fire and brimstone. We thought he was going to kill you. Now he's asking you for forgiveness. So of course they're thinking this. The Rav gives them forgiveness and then the rabbi tells them, look, I'll tell you why he asked me for forgiveness. Why he never had revenge. He never took his revenge on me. I'll tell you why. He said, do you know when I saw him in shul that time, and I stopped him having that aliyah, and I asked him to go out of the shul, I wasn't just telling him off. I wasn't full of anger. When I gave him this rebuke, in my mind, I felt sorry for him. I felt such a tsar for this fellow, such a pain that this fellow had done so many averot against the Jewish people. I felt sorry for him. I thought, where's this guy going to go now? Where's it? After 120 years, where's he going to be? And I felt rachamim for him. I felt mercy for him. And because I felt this for him, I felt it so sincerely. Therefore, it took him a few weeks, but he felt the same feeling as me. And he came back and he asked my forgiveness. That's the reason why. This can be applied to Yaakov. What was Yaakov Avinu trying to tell his sons when he sent them to Egypt and said to them, may you have rachamim? He was telling them, if you have rachamim, if you feel mercy towards this ruler of Egypt, then automatically the ruler of Egypt will have mercy for you. He will echo your emotion. Just like we said before originally, Hashem is tzilcha, he's like our shadow. The same thing with this ruler. You will have a show of mercy. You will have a show of emotion. Then the ruler will have no option. Automatically it will happen, he will feel mercy towards you. Such an important lesson in life. That if we want to influence people for the good, then we need to feel that ourselves. Again, it comes down to the same lesson. If you want to tell people off, you can't tell people off by feeling angry and cross. There has to be an element of emotion in there. Really, the anger has to be what's called ka'as al panav. It's got to be external anger. It's literally got to be a show. Like a play. You're making a play. You're an actor. You have to be like an actor. Everyone likes, not me, but whatever, not us. But people watch movies, they like actors. So you want to be like an actor, L'Shem Shemaim, so you become an actor. When you need to get cross with somebody, make it kas al panav. Make it like a show. That shouldn't be your real emotion. Your real emotion should be one of wanting to help that person. Feeling rachamim. Feeling chesed. Feeling ahava for that person. In that way you will be a mashpia. You will influence the person. Not if you have kas. Not if you have anger only. That will not work. That'll just put the person's back up. And it'll have the adverse effect. So, in conclusion, I want to just mention why Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik. Let's think about Yosef's life very briefly. Yosef's father Yaakov also had it tough. He had one brother who wanted to kill him. Yosef, on the other hand, had 10 brothers who wanted to kill him. Do we think about that? Yosef could turn around and say, Dad, you think you got it bad. I got 10 times worse than you. I got one brother, Binyamin, he wasn't in on the whole plan. But the other 10, they wanted to kill me. So his own brothers put a death sentence on his head. Not the Ishmaelim, not the Canaanim, not the Midianim, not some other nation. His own brothers, his own flesh and blood, wanted to kill him. Can you imagine growing up like that? Then they threw him in a pit. And we know the pit was full of scorpions and snakes. You know something? If you were in a pit with a spider, a little spider, you'd go out your mind. I know I would. I'm not so scared of spiders, but I'm not particularly fond of them either. Just one spider would drive me mad. We're not talking about one spider. We're not talking about one scorpion. We're talking about a whole pit full of them. Every single crack in this thing had scorpions in there. And snakes. A snake. Can you imagine being in a big wide room with a snake? You'd be going out your mind. You'd quickly run and find the exit. One snake. One is enough. A whole pit full of them. I'm surprised Yosef didn't die of fright. Just looking at these things. He would have just died. No. Miracle happened, they all went inside. Okay, so he was thrown into this pit. Then he was sold to some goyim. And the goyim sold to more goyim. And then he ended up in Egypt. He ended up being bought by some perverts who wanted to do every aveira with him. And then not only that, when the pervert didn't get his way, then his wife started trying to attack him. The bear. What type of life is that? And what do we call him? Yosef HaTzadik. Okay. Why is he called Yosef HaTzadik? We don't call Moshe Rabbeinu Moshe HaTzadik. We don't call Aaron HaTzadik. We don't call David HaTzadik. And let me compound this question even more. And this is my own thought. When I was preparing this shir, I had this thought. You know, there are 4 people in the Midrash. It says 4 people never did a sin in their entire life. There was Binyamin, the son of Yaakov. There was Yishai, the father of Moshe Rabbeinu. There was Yishai. There was Amram, the father of Moshe Rabbeinu. No, Yishai, the father of David HaMelech. There was Amram, the father of Moshe Rabbeinu. And there was Kilav, the son of David HaMelech. 4 people. Binyamin, Amram, Yishai, Kilav. 4 of them never did a sin in their entire holy lives. They only died because of the sin of the Nachash. Because of the taint of that original sin in the Garden of Eden was enough to make them die. Just that one sin. They didn't do that sin. But because that sin was in the world, that's why they died. Can you imagine living an entire life of never doing a sin? No Lashon Hara, no stealing, nothing, no tiny little thing, nothing. So let me ask you the question. One of them was Binyamin. We don't call him Binyamin HaTzadik. We don't call Amram HaTzadik. We don't call Kilav HaTzadik, Yishai HaTzadik. Why? They never did a sin. Yosef, on the other hand, he was a good guy. He was a very, very good guy. Extremely good guy. But he did have some taint of sin. He told Lashon Hara about his brothers, to some degree. Yeah, there was a few things he did that weren't perfect. Why is he a tzaddik? And why not Binyamin? So I had this question in my mind as I was preparing the shir. And I came up with an answer. What was the difference between Yosef and Binyamin? And the answer is, Yosef was tested. Binyamin was not tested. Binyamin never had some woman running after him. Binyamin wasn't thrown in a pit. Binyamin didn't have his brothers wanting to kill him. Binyamin didn't have his mother die. Well, he did have his mother die when he was young, when he was being born. When he was being born. Okay, so he had one thing. Fine. Yishai wasn't tested like that. It's the testing that made Yosef into Yosef HaTzadik. Now, of course, we don't ask for tests. We don't want tests. V'lo al yidei nisayon. We don't want tests. But when we get tests, tests help us to attain greatness. My son Binyamin, who's actually filming this share as we speak, I saw him earlier. He was on a bike, on an exercise bike. He was sitting on the exercise bike. He was going round and round, really quickly. And I thought to myself, you're not going to get any exercise from this. It's too easy for you. You need to put on a gear. First gear, second gear, third gear. Put on some resistance. When you have the resistance, that's when you're going to get your muscles. But if you leave it with no gears and just going round and round and round quickly, that's not exercise. That's just fun. If a life is just fun, where's the improvement? How are we going to get better? So what does Hashem give us? He gives us first gear, second gear, third gear. He'll give us one potch here, one test here, noch a test, another test here, another test there. Do these make us worse people? No. Each test we have we're supposed to pass it. And through that we attain greatness. Hashem gives us tests, just like He gave Yosef a tzaddik a test to make them greater. So this we should all take with us. If there's one thing we need to take to this share, I believe it's this one thing. If Hashem gives us a test, it's not to knock us down, not to make us like a garnished, not so we turn around and say, who's God, that He treats me like this? He makes me crash my car. He makes me hurt myself. He makes me lose my job. He makes me fight for my parnasah. No. Don't turn against God because of these tests. However hard it is, Hashem is trying to make you great. He's trying to build you up. He's trying to put those gears on the bike to make you better. Just like He did with Yosef. Yosef could have had every right to turn around to Hashem and say, Hashem, you've done nothing for me. Nothing. What have I got to thank you for? You killed my mother when I was 7. You made my brothers hate me. Every worst thing in the world you did for me. So you know what, God? Forget it. I don't owe you nothing. I'm going to go marry this Zuleika, the wife of Potiphar. I'm going to do what I want. I don't owe you nothing. Thanks for nothing. He would have had every right to say such a thing. But no. He realized that everything was from Hashem, that everything was like the bicycle with the gears to make him greater. And everything that happened to him, he had a clear vision that this is Min HaShamayim. That's why he's called Yosef a Tzaddik. We're not called Binyamin a Tzaddik. That's the reason why. A person is great because he has his tests and he passes his tests. Bezrat Hashem, my bracha to everybody for what it's worth, is that whenever we have a test, no matter how small or how big it is, we must be like Yosef a Tzaddik and realize that it's Min HaShamayim. And this test is made to make me achieve greatness in this world, so that I can take from the 7 fat years, from the years of plenty, this world where I can take and grab whatever mitzvah I want, to take that greatness and take it with me after 120 years to Shamayim. And in this way we will all ultimately be sitting with Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the crowns on our heads, the golden crowns of Torah and Mitzvot. We should all see the Yeshua. Amen.